Greetings, folks, and thank you for checking out the political napalm. So, as you would imagine, when you see an episode go up right after the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, you're probably going to figure that we're going to talk about it, and I'm sure you can tell by the title. We're going to go ahead and talk about it. This particular debate I watched 99% of. I think I missed a few moments. The Biden and Trump debate, I only caught the end hour of it. For some reason, in my reminder for that one, I had it as an hour later than the start time. This particular time, I was actually ready to go about 10 minutes ahead of time, and I was watching C-SPAN take call-in questions. And there were two actually real interesting questions that came in on the C-SPAN pre-show. And one was a lady who said, what I want from Kamala Harris is I want her to show respect to Trump voters. I'm in Woodstock, Virginia. I live in a red area, and I think Hillary really messed up when she called Trump supporters deplorables. And that immediately turned a lot of people off to Hillary who could have voted for her. So I think she was saying more like center pole type voters and everything. And she was saying, I hope Kamala respects the Trump voters, because I have some people that I know that if Trump does not do well, they're going to shift. And the public relations person in me, the certified mediator in me, could understand that sentiment. But then there was a caller, maybe two or three callers later, that was like, hey, there was somebody who called in before and said that she should be nice to the Trump voters and everything. I disagree highly. They are the worst on social media. They're the most aggressive. They're the most racist. They're the most bigoted. And I also understood where she was coming from, but it brings to light that the voters that the first person was talking about are probably real, true conservatives and not Trump voters or Trumper people, I should say, MAGA. They are what Trump likes to call rhinos, when in fact, at this point, especially as things continue to spiral for Trump, he is the rhino. He is a Republican in name only, mostly because he's dragged MAGA so far right and so far into fascism and craziness that the Kissingers, the Cheneys, his former staff, 40 out of 44 people that he worked with are going against him now. They are the conservatives, not MAGA. MAGA is its own thing right now. But I wanted to point that out. I thought that was a quite interesting dichotomy of callers over there. And I think if people missed at least some of that C-SPAN stuff ahead of time, it would be a shame, because I think they brought up some good points. But so before I get into my many, many notes that I took on this debate over here, I just want to point out this video from Brian Taylor Cohen over on Twitter and say that I kind of truly agree with his sentiment here, that he says you can literally pinpoint the exact moment when Trump lost the debate. I'm just going to play this video and then we'll get on to my notes and everything. But this was kind of a really, really bad moment for Trump.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
Just a completely ridiculous statement. Yes, it did get fact-checked. I will get to that in my notes and everything over here, but it is not a thing that he came out of this debate as the victor. I will end the suspense there and just say that basically he got smashed the entire way through. If you have never seen this episode before, I highly recommend that you either go to YouTube or somewhere where it streams it. There was a relatively early season in Family Guy's history where Lois was running for mayor. And Brian the dog says to Lois, undecided voters are the stupidest people. They will believe anything. And Lois begins to believe what Brian is saying and goes in front of some Quahog voters, and she can see that she's losing. And Adam West character is not really saying anything particularly high IQ or highbrow or real lot of policy. She just starts saying 9/11, and it's kind of ironic because I'm filming this on 9/11. But she just kept saying 9/11 over and over, and it would sort of get a WWE crowd pop. And that is something that I've always used against Trump from back in 2015, 2016 somewhere, is that he would do the same thing. He's catchphrases, and he's so low on policy and he's so low on substance. It is often catchphrases. And yes, every campaign has them. Hope, we're not going back. Everybody has them. But MAGA is the campaign. But when he's speaking, it's just these catchphrases all the time. Hannibal Lecter, lock her up. Sleepy Joe Biden in his basement. It's just sound bites, these little easily digestible nuggets so that he can do lowest common denominator reaching. And that's all that he did in this entire debate was his, version of Lois's 9/11 was illegal aliens. And I think he's very, very lucky there was no audience for this particular point, because it just would have been a chaotic uproar. The fact that he says this, and it has immediately been debunked by each of the cities, Aurora, Colorado, Springfield, Ohio, none of these things that the media is saying is happening is actually happening there. There are not gangs taking over apartment complexes. There are not Haitian immigrants cooking dogs and pets and cats and eating them and everything like that. I mean, it's RFK that, depending on whether you believe him or what other people have said, he says it was a goat. Other people have said dogs, but he's got that picture of him standing behind an animal that is splayed out and cooked, and you can see the meat and the bones and everything, and all the limbs are askew in every direction. He says it was a goat. When the story broke, it was dog. One thing I want to point out is that he routinely attacks E. Jean Carroll for saying that her whole Bergdorf Goodman episode with Trump came from a Law and Order episode, and it was her favorite show, and basically what she did was say a Law and Order plot. I just want to point out that there was a Law and Order or Law and Order SVU plot that was about people cooking pets on premises and using animals that we would consider somewhat protected animals, and it was supposedly in religious ceremonies and everything like that. So, it's funny that he wants to go on the offensive and defame E. Jean Carroll, saying that her accusation was a Law and Order episode, when basically what he's doing here is elevating this BS narrative that Haitian immigrants and illegal aliens are cooking and eating pets. It just reminds me of that that religious ceremony episode. But okay, let's go ahead and get into my notes. So the very first question asked of Kamala was, are we better off now than 4 years ago? Because this isn't a common talking point. And both sides are using this as a talking point. I was upset that Kamala kind of didn't answer it. She used it as a opening monologue in an SNL, and she didn't really answer the question. I feel that she was getting her feet out, or her feet under her, and she sounded a tad bit nervous, but she could have done the question more justice and used it more as a, yes, we are absolutely better off than we were 4 years ago. You had trouble getting toilet paper in the supermarkets. The supermarket shelves were bare of all products. His mishandling of COVID led to the biggest bump of corporate greed we've ever seen in the United States. And, price hikes and everything. If he had handled it better, that wouldn't have been such a scary time. Maybe corporations wouldn't have gotten so greedy. I don't feel she dodged it, but I feel that she unfortunately had a huge moment to take a huge bite out of an apple and go to town on him. But she didn't really take it. She just sort of used it as a closing statement, but as an opening statement. It was a Saturday Night Live, here's the host monologue kind of deal. I was like, this doesn't seem to be starting off on a good foot over there. Trump didn't call it out, and Trump did not retaliate with his own, we're better off, 4 years ago because Biden and Harris weren't there doing inflation. He immediately opened up with the tariffs. We had better tariffs, and it was bringing us billions of dollars and blah, blah, blah. And he just went on a rant that was incorrect. The China tariffs bankrupted the American heartland and the farmers. We paid for the tariffs, not China. And then he was like, well, they haven't removed the tariffs and everything. And that actually is a point for him. I will give him that. If the tariffs were so bad, why didn't you remove them? He brought it up a few times, and unfortunately, Kamala never really attacked that one. To her defense, though, most of the times that he said that, the moderation staff was cutting him off because he was speaking out of turn. Usually when Kamala would finish something, he would jump in and they would try to get control. And he's like, no, I want to answer that, blah, blah, blah. So not the best beginning for Kamala. However, Trump immediately played his hand. He was playing poker where you lick your cards and you stick them on your forehead. And he immediately showed the tact he was going to take for the whole debate, which was illegal aliens, 9/11, 9/11. That was his lowest 9/11, was illegal aliens do everything. So his comments about China were incorrect. The comments about no inflation were absolutely incorrect. He says multiple times throughout the debate that Biden and Harris have the highest inflation we've ever seen, which is absolutely not true. He goes again and does the exaggerated cost comparisons that things are multiple times more expensive now than they used to be. Fortunately, he didn't get into gas prices exactly. He sort of went into oil later on. But then immediately he goes into the illegal aliens and the gangs in town. So you could see where he was going this entire debate, and he basically dumped his load. He shot the wad, and the first 5 minutes, the first couple answers he gave, you knew exactly what you were in for this entire debate. And yeah, he definitely stuck with it. So you'll be seeing some random pictures show up over here while I talk. That's just to have some interesting things. This is more podcast style. Then Kamala goes back and rebuts a bunch of things and mentions, now she finally gets around to talking about COVID, saying what he did on J6. Basically that what he had been saying about his previous response had a lot of lies. And then she brings up Project 2025, and Trump actually shakes his head yes at this one. For somebody who keeps trying to deny his connection to Project 2025. He actually had a huge poker tell and shook his head up and down. And yes, when it came to her saying about Project 2025, if you truly are attempting to deny it and you have any idea of body language expertise and everything, you're going to sit there and you're going to shake your head. No, you're going to have a look like this on your face. You would think that Trump in this picture said Kamala is about Project 2025. This is kind of the response you would have if you're trying to deny it. No, he sat there and he shook his head. Yes, up and down. So there's that. Then he tried to deny it again. Then he says he hasn't read it. He's saying he handed the Biden-Harris campaign a great stock market and a great economy and everything. And he was trying to say even with COVID, it was a great economy and everything, which was absolutely not true. And the stock market, NASDAQ, all of that has been higher under Biden. It's literally been the highest in the entire country's history. So that is not a point in his favor. And then Kamala brings up the fact that the financial professors at Wharton, the economists at Wharton, say that Trump's plan will absolutely kill us. Goldman Sachs, Nobel laureates, they're all saying that Trump's economic plan would destroy the nation. And those are all facts. The lies about the inflation and what he handed over are completely wrong. He tried to defend himself and say, well, I've gone to Wharton. I know the professors. They're great. They're not saying this. They absolutely are. There's proof of it. Kamala then focuses on his trade war and how it was a net deficit to come out of that with China. And she wants to focus on America and lifting up small businesses, big businesses in America, to have them compete on the world stage rather than focus on tariffs, which does nothing but hand it over to the consumer. A tariff on a good coming in is paid for by us, because if we intend to buy that product and we make it more expensive for a company to bring that product in, the company passes it on to us. And that is absolutely true. And that is exactly what happened when he did the tariffs on the crops and everything. And he bankrupted the heartland. Not to mention, let's not forget what happened with the formula issue, the baby formula issue. He made it so expensive to bring in out of the country formula, to import baby formula, that when the American factories were blowing up and the production had to stop in combination with contamination and the factory blowing up, we had no reserves because we weren't able to bring in baby formula for other countries. The tariffs were too high, so our stock was depleted once the American stock was used. That was also another thing that was caused by Trump. Nobody brought that up in the debate, but it's a good point about tariffs. So then Kamala focuses on the fact that, you say you did everything so great for COVID, which you absolutely didn't. You thanked Xi Jinping in a tweet. You were like, thank you, Xi Jinping, for helping out the United States and everything. And Kamala's like, he was not forthcoming with the information. He withheld a lot of pertinent stuff. And you thanked him when he was not helpful at the time. And then immediately Trump does not go and talk about that, but says, back to aliens, 21 illegal aliens. She's a Marxist. Her dad's a Marxist professor. It's lowest 9/11 with him. He's avoiding so much of the substance of the topic at hand and just keeps going back to this repetitive illegal aliens. They say 15. It's really 21. It's more than that. he didn't do the communist stuff too much, but he did do some Marxist stuff in the beginning over here. Then a question comes out about abortion, and the moderators bring up the fact that he's flip-flopping on abortion, and he's flip-flopping again. He's so proud of Roe v. Wade, and then it's back to the states, and then they talk about his vote for what's going on in Florida with the 6-week ban and everything. First you said you're against it, then you said you're for it, and they call him out that no state allows for the abortion of a baby after birth, because it's not an abortion at that point. The baby's born. He's like, oh, it's an execution, everything. They immediately check that out. They check that on him and say that does not happen in any state. And he goes into a spiral where sometimes he says it's the West Virginia governor, and sometimes he says it's the ex-Virginia governor. He can't get it right on that. This is not happening. This execution of babies after they are born is not happening. He's misunderstanding one case where a baby was born with defects that were not detected during pregnancy and was not compatible with a good and healthy life due to what was chromosomally, genetically wrong with the child, and it's happened once. This is not an example of what reality is and what the future is going forward, and this was not an execution. This was a discussion about this child is not compatible with life. These things were not detected in utero. What are we going to do? So they called him out on that. Then he lies about Roe v. Wade. And he says, everybody, all the scholars, Democrats, liberals, Republicans, conservatives, they all wanted it put back to the states, which, as you know, is absolute bullshit. No Democrat or liberal wants state, they don't want states making these rules that could disenfranchise women, which is what Kamala brings up multiple times in this. And he keeps saying, I gave it back to the states. I gave it back to the states. And everybody wants it. Then he says 85% of Republicans want the abortions, but are okay with exceptions. Where's the proof? Where's the proof that 85% of Republicans are okay with the rape and incest and life of the mother, life of the baby exceptions and everything like that? In some states, we are absolutely not seeing it. The moderators fact-checked him on this one. Kamala goes on a good attack over here, talking about the no rape and incest exceptions and how even in states right now this is becoming problematic. She brings up religious people on it, and I think she had said something to the fact that, like, if they are not into it themselves, that's fine, but don't use that as a reason to make laws restricting rights and everything. My note is a little short on that one, but it was good to hear something about religion there. Let's see. The case of the miscarriage being the woman who was bleeding out in her car when the doctors did not know, like, okay, you're having a miscarriage. We need to abort this baby, but we are too scared to do it because we don't understand the new laws. And she was basically sent to go sit in her car. Kamala was very good and restrained during this segment, but she was emotional. You could see the emotions matter to her, and that was good. You could sit there and say, hey, the right has been attacking the left for years, that they're too emotional, but this is a humanizing emotion over here. And I believe it's going to resonate with people, especially women, on that. Trump tried to interject over here with more lies, even though he was not asked for a rebuttal at this point in time. He did one of those things where Kamala stops speaking and he tries to talk and the moderators try to rein him in. Then they move on from abortion and they talk about, they're still talking about abortion, but they're talking about what would happen if a total countrywide ban on abortion crossed his desk. Would you veto it? And he keeps saying that we don't need to talk about this because it's not going to happen. And, let's compare it to, I say this isn't going to happen, but it's kind of like when Biden said, student loans will happen. And, you knew they weren't going to happen and they got shot down, and like, no, people got their student loans resolved. And then he goes on again, and he says that, we're going to do it better. We're going to bring it back and try to do it a second time. And the court shot that one down too. And again, he never answered the question. If an abortion ban crossed his desk and he was president, would he veto it? He dodged the question because he knows he's trying to play to both sides. It is ridiculously apparent in this segment that with all the flip-flopping he's done, them calling him out on the flip-flopping, that he didn't want to offend one of the sides. He knew he might lose some people and say, yes, I would veto a federal ban on it. And he knew he might lose people if he said, no, I wouldn't veto a ban on it, because some of the center pole women where the right to choose is big for them are going to come away from Trump if he talks about that ban. So he actually didn't. He did not talk about the ban at all, and he dodged it. Then they bring up, well, J.D. Vance said this, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, I don't really know what J.D. Vance said. He tried to distance himself and dodge the fact that J.D. was making stronger comments about abortion than Trump was, and he threw J.D. Vance under the bus at this point. ABC tried to press him again, and he dodged it again. ABC could not get him to answer that question, which in and of itself is an answer to the question. So he's repeating his, for 52 years, scholars wanted this off the books and back to the states, and now it is. I did a good thing. I think Kamala missed a point over here. She could have scored some points on this and said, Trump brings up about the 6 judges getting it done and everything like this. And Kamala should have pointed out, you say these 6 judges voted for it. And she does call him out on, you're the one who appointed some of these. However, she misses a moment and a mark where she could have said, and some of those Supreme Court justices were liars when they said it was codified and they wouldn't touch it, and then they voted to have it not protected. She could have struck gold on that one and brought up about the hypocrisy of SCOTUS, and unfortunately missed that chance over there. I think she could have done that one a little bit better, but hindsight is 2020. This is not even a point I thought of at the time. I'm thinking of it now. Kamala gets a little bit emotional again at this point, brings up a good point that America's women are voting. And Kamala tried to get him back to the veto question. He dodged it again. Now this is his 3rd dodging of vetoing an abortion ban. So ABC gave up at this point and moved on. Now they're talking about the border. Kamala comes out real strong on this one, lands a good hit about killing the bill, and said, we had a bill. It was bipartisan until you picked up the phone and you had your people in Congress kill it. We could have had it. And she says he's going to go on and on about the border in this particular debate and everything. This is extremely smart debate strategy. If you get out in front of what somebody's going to do, and they're going to do it frequently and consistently, and you're like, here's what he's going to do. He's going to spin around 3 times and fart as an answer to every question. You knock the person off balance, because your choice is either A, spin around 3 times and fart and then prove the person right, or flounder to not do that, even though that is what you wish to do. So that was a good call on her part. ABC asks a good question. You did kill the bill and everything. And then he starts lying. And then Kamala also mentions, while talking about killing the border bill, let's you want to see something, let's all go to a Trump rally and you'll see how tired they are of the same rhetoric and they're leaving early and blah blah blah, which is true. We've seen the video proof of it, of them packing up and leaving early. Like when you leave a losing football game or a losing basketball game and your home team is losing, you're like, all right, we're getting out of here so you can get to the parking deck and leave early and beat the traffic, because you don't want to stay for the whole thing. It's 11-2 in the ninth inning. You're figuring your team is not going to come back for 9 or 10 runs over there, so you leave early. And they are doing it, so she hits him on that. It seems to trigger him. So then he lies about the rallies. He's like, my rallies are perfect. They have the most amount of people. Her rallies have nobody, which is absolutely not true. We've seen it. She had to bus people in. Again, another absolute lie over there. More doom and gloom. We're going to have World War III, back to millions and millions of immigrants and illegal aliens with lies about Ohio and Colorado. This is where he brings up the pet eating thing. So the pet eating thing, it was semi on topic because it was a question about the border, but they fact check him right there on that one. Good. It's good to see that. Some people ahead of the debate were like, one of the callers was like, I want to see fact checking in real time. Because the C-SPAN was like, don't you go here and don't you go there. And she's like, yes, that's all after the fact. I want to see it during. And, ABC did that. They called out a bunch of them. So then Kamala brings up that there is a ton of Republican support for Kamala, gets a good hit on Trump's former coworkers not backing him. Trump goes on the attack for the Afghan pullout in this situation. Then talks about he got the most votes as a sitting president or as a Republican president. And, the Afghan pullout was set up by Trump. And fortunately, Kamala was prepared for this one. And she comes with statistics. I don't remember if it was then or later, but she comes out with the big hits of, you invited the Taliban to Camp David. You met with them without the Afghan government. You were meeting with the enemy. You were giving them concessions. And Trump actually acknowledges that and says, yes, I knew they were shooting at our people with snipers, so I wanted to talk to them. And the number 2 guy was there, and I showed him a picture of his house. He's like, Mr. Trump, why are you showing me a picture of my house? And Trump says, well, you'll find out if you keep doing this. Let's not forget that Trump absolutely dropped us down to the bare minimums before he got out, and then attacked Biden for not doing the pullout in May. So that would have even been more chaotic. And that's what Trump was rooting for, was the May pullout, not the later August or September one that it actually wound up being. He's saying we're going to be like Venezuela at this point, but Venezuela's crimes are going down because all their criminals are coming to the United States. All our crime is going up, but all the other countries are going down because the criminals are coming here. It is brought up that illegals can't vote. I mean, that is the thing. You cannot vote as an illegal alien. There are states where you can be given a federal-only form, but unless you can prove that you are a citizen or a valid voting citizen of America, that is a federal crime. So this whole illegals voting thing gets on repeat about here. He's still repeating himself and lying about crime being up. He gets hit with a good fact check from ABC, but he tries to fight it back, saying, well, the FBI is lying. They're not counting the big cities where crime is happening. And ABC tells him that's not true. Kamala fires back and says, you talk about law and order and all this stuff, but let's not forget the crimes that you are, that you are being accused of. And she's hitting him right where it hurts about him, being a criminal and the lies that Kamala wants to defund the police when Trump has actually brought it up. And Kamala and Biden did not defund any police whatsoever. Hits on him for being repetitive and whining. He tries to interject at this point, but he's also lying, and this is where he brings up the lawfare, basically, that it's Biden and Kamala and the DOJ going after him, saying that he's winning all these battles when he's absolutely not. And the documents case gets brought up where he says, oh, that was thrown out. I won that. No, that is actually not thrown out. That was rejected from Eileen Cannon down there in a way that Jack Smith was able to appeal with it. And I kind of think in a lot of ways Eileen Cannon did it on purpose when she punted that one, because now Jack Smith can protest her ruling on it the way that she did it. There were ways that she could have done it that would have sealed it up and ended it, but she didn't do it. She's either stupid and didn't do it that way, or knew deep down she had no way of getting out of this, so she did it in a way where they can still continue to go after Trump, and that's what Jack Smith is doing. So he's lying about the documents case there. He says, well, Biden did basically the same thing and all this, and and I'm totally innocent, and I got it, it was thrown out, which is bullshit. Biden found not guilty on the documents, and the Trump's document case was thrown out. Kamala at this point hits him back with facts about what he said about suspending the Constitution and terminating it and dictator on day one, and how he said he would use the Department of Justice to go after people who were against him if he actually became president again. Trump interjects at this point and says none of that is true and blah, blah, blah. And I took a bullet for this country, which is, laughably pathetic. Let's see. ABC does go after Kamala Harris at this point, where you were against fracking, you wanted to take back guns, and now it seems like you've backed down on that. But she hits back and says, Biden and I did not ban fracking, and we did not take guns. She's like, myself and Tim Walz are gun owners. We are not coming for your guns. And at this point, she starts kind of bringing up the middle class again. I would think a little too much. I think you can establish a correlation to yourself and between yourself and middle class people, but you don't want to pander. And I think at this point, maybe she came a little too close to bringing up the middle class stuff too much, and maybe kind of bordered on pandering a little bit. She turns it against Trump that, you were given $4 million. I was not given $4 million. But yet you've still declared bankruptcy 6 times. He tries to say that I was not given $4 million. It was less than that, but I worked hard and all that. It's not looking good for Trump in this conversation. Kamala is again still talking about lifting up. Trump is talking about beating down. This is when he says the crazy moment where he says illegal aliens are getting sex changes in prison, which is absolutely ridiculous. Biden, he goes and slams Biden for oil prices and things like that. Yet Biden was the one who did some very smart things where he sold some of our oil reserves when oil was high, and he sold it on the open market. And then when prices dropped later, when the demand went down a little bit, he bought it back and replenished our reserves cheaper. And he used that money on the sales to combat inflation a bit. He brings up Pipeline Excel and says, Biden shut it down. Pipeline Excel was never about the United States. It was bringing sweet shale oil from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, where Canada could sell it in an easier body of water for transportation. Americans were never going to benefit from Pipeline Excel except for the jobs to actually make the pipeline as a cut down through Native American areas and nature tracks for animals during migration, and what happens if a spill happens on one of these areas of land and everything. And it was pointed out that by not continuing with Pipeline Excel, and everybody's like, oh, these people are going to lose their jobs, truckers were able to gain more money and there be more trucking jobs because they have to resume their old routes. If the pipeline was in place, it actually would have impacted truckers long term, because Pipeline Excel only was going to have jobs long enough to take it to get built. Once it gets built, that job goes away. But truckers go to infinity if that pipeline is not there or there's not a way around it. And then he's like, Biden shut down Pipeline Excel, but then was pro Nord Stream. And he sort of gets a point there, but it still goes off the rails for Trump a bit. Now comes some J6 questions, and they ask him, would you have done anything better about J6? And, he said, well, the only person who died was Ashley Babbitt, and nobody else died on that one, shot by a real bastard of a cop and everything. We know this is absolutely not true. Ashley Babbitt was not the only person who died that day. We did lose people in the service. We lost Roseanne Boyland. Her name was escaping me for a moment. We lost Roseanne Boyland, who died as a combination of drugs in her system and having an asthma attack, because basically a concert crush of people had her pinned up against the Capitol, and she went down and she got trampled, and people were trying to get to her. Unfortunately, they didn't get to her quick enough, and she died as a combination of being overweight, suffering from asthma, also in relation to her weight, having meth in her system, and not being able to breathe when she got trampled on and everything. And people forget the whole reason why Roseanne was there is because she believed in Trump saving kids. She believed in the Wayfair scandal. She believed in the Pizzagate stuff. She was radicalized by right-wing rhetoric that uses fake stories like Pizzagate and the Wayfair child trafficking scandal, and it ensnared her, and she is a prime example of how disinformation kills. And that's why she died that day. She didn't have to be there. Her family tried to talk her out of it, and she said, I want to go because I want to see the look in Trump's eyes. If I don't feel that he's truthful about trying to save the kids and everything, then this is the last time I'm going to be associated with him. And she went, and she died for that, because she was a victim of disinformation. It was the only reason why she was there. So he lies about the police. Again, he starts talking about illegal aliens on a J6 question. So he dodges the question, would you do anything differently? So ABC tries to pin him down and bring it back. Would you do anything differently on that day after seeing what happened? Oh, well, I put it on the DC mayor. I put it on Pelosi. They were the ones who were supposed to talk about it and do it and everything. And then he brings up the tape that was made from Pelosi's daughter, where Pelosi says, I'm responsible, blah, blah, blah. He's mischaracterizing what Pelosi was saying in that video, what Nancy Pelosi was saying in that video. Not that I'm responsible for J6. She's saying, and if you know the context of the video, it's very clear. She's saying she's responsible for underestimating all the trouble Trump was going to cause. To pigeonhole it as Pelosi said she's responsible is not reality and is not what is said in that video. ABC is still trying to pin him down to, how do you feel about that day when you've done anything different? And he dodges it again. He was like, well, you got to remember I said to go down there peacefully and patriotically. But that totally ignores the bloodbath comments from the people that he was talking with. And you're not going to have a country anymore. Sure, he said 2 words of calmness, but the rest of his rhetoric that day and the rest of the rhetoric of his buddies that day was not calm. So ABC tried to hit him up on that. Still kept dodging it. Kamala corrects the record. This is where I think Kamala said some things that I don't agree with. She brings up the fine people from Charlottesville. Then also follows it up with, hey, remember what you said to the Proud Boys of stand back and stand by. I think bringing up fine people in Charlottesville is a little risky because Biden likes to bring that one up. And there has been some immediate pushback on that from the MAGA side. And it kind of really sounds like they have a point there. It's like, well, no, he said that. You're forgetting where he said this and that. And, she brings it back to her campaign slogan, we're not going back, brings up the bloodbath comment, which I thought was, again, a little bit risky. Trump has a good response over here and says, I was talking about there being an energy bloodbath. I actually have to go back and get the context on that one. But he has a pretty quick response, and he makes it sound believable. Then he says, all these people debunked the fine people quote. But the thing is, he just keeps bringing up right-wing people like Sean Hannity and Tucker and, like Alex Jones type people. He doesn't actually really bring up that many credible journalists. He just goes for the rightoid journalists and everything, your OANs, your Newsmax, your Fox and everything. He doesn't actually bring up anybody else other than that. Not a good way to make up your case when you just bring up some partisan hacks on that one. But I'll give him a point there. He was ready to fight that one off, and he actually stuck to it. Then he gets really, really stupid where he says, let's go to DC now. Let's end this debate. Let's go to DC. We'll sign some bills for voting and the border. And let's go right now. Let's wake Joe Biden up. Let's sign these bills because he could do it. And then he says, when I said I lost by a whisker, I was being sarcastic because he's trying to say he was being sarcastic about it because it was due to voter malfeasance and everything. The ABC staff was like, no, I'm sorry, I missed that sarcasm. It didn't really sound sarcastic. So they hit him back on it because I have watched that lost by a whisker comment, and he does not seem sarcastic. He's not like winking at the crowd and they're laughing and like, oh yeah, we know voter fraud, dead people voting. He goes on a crying tear about elections and everything at this point. ABC hits him back and says, well, you lost 60 cases. He's like, oh, but they didn't go to judges. It was standing. It was all standing. We didn't have standing. But here's the thing. You would find the people who have the standing if the case was real. Once the case got dismissed, you abandoned it. You could have done different things. You could have had the right people do it, but you didn't because you didn't have a leg to stand on. So at this point, he goes back to our nation in decline. We're dying. ABC brings up his intimidation tweets if he loses. At this point, Kamala's getting a little bit angry. Oh, no, excuse me. Kamala's bringing up the fact that world leaders are basically clowning Trump and that the world leaders are laughing at him when they discuss him. And then she's bringing back these old slams about he doesn't have the temperament to be a leader and how the world leaders agree with that. And then he was like, yeah, but Viktor Orban says everything's going to hell and we need Trump. We have to have Trump back and it'll be better for other countries if Trump is back. He's Viktor Orban. He's a fascist. And if you remember correctly, Trump couldn't even get the right country that Viktor Orban is the head of. He said he was from Turkey when he was from Hungary. I mean, he's getting his fascists mixed up. This was not in the debate. This was in the past. But he can't even get his dictator's countries right. This is where he's talking about the XL pipeline and Nord Stream. Trump is also getting angry at this point. He's getting angry and very animated. And he lies that says Biden hated Kamala and everything. And then says, she's anti-Israel and all this stuff. Kamala's like, that is absolutely not true. I'm very against Hamas, but Israel needs to do it right. Brings up a lot of two-state solutions. Brings up that they want a ceasefire. That Hamas is a terrorist organization. We should help the Palestinian people rebuild when this is over, and Israel too. Get a respectful two-state solution where the sides are not upset at each other, but still is coming down on the fact that United States is pro-Israel and that Hamas is a terrorist organization and is the Hamas terrorists that are the ones who need to suffer, not innocent Palestinians and innocent Israelis. Trump is like, oh, if I was president, I would go to Russia. I would go to Putin and I would get it done. I would get all these things fixed in 24 hours. As a matter of fact, I could do it if I was a president-elect. And, Kamala hates Israel so much that when Netanyahu was coming into town, she went to a, quote, sorority party. She hates Israelis. She hates Netanyahu. She hates Arabs. It's all this doom and gloom stuff. Everything's going to be blown up. Iran has money now because Biden lifted sanctions, but he's not answering the question. They asked him, how would you fix it? He just is like, I would fix it. I would fix it. I would talk to these people. I would fix it. No plan. He thinks he's a great negotiator, that he could get Putin in a room and Zelensky in a room. I know both of them. I would just tell them to stop and they would stop. It's just laughable at this point. Believes he could do it as a president-elect. Kamala hits him big over here. It's like, again, you're just a divider. I'm trying to bring people together. You were dividing like you always do. You admire dictators. You've mentioned you would be a dictator on day one. Putin can do what he wants. Putin was brilliant when he invaded the Ukraine. All the praise that was out there for Putin. Trump brings up the fact that, Putin likes weak people, so Putin endorsed Kamala, totally not understanding that what Putin said was sarcastic. That was actual real sarcasm. It went right over his head. Again, Trump interjects at this point when he was not asked to, and this was after Kamala said, the dictators know you are weak. They know they can buy you with flattery, which has been seen before. And this is what gets Trump mad, and he tries to interject when he was not asked to reply. But again, he's bringing up the aliens and their crime rates. ABC cuts him off at this point to go to commercial because he's getting out of hand and he's just getting repetitive. They come back from the commercial. They're like, okay, Trump, you said you can fix it in 24 hours. How are you going to do that? Trump brings up these fake numbers and he's saying the losses in Ukraine are worse than what is actually being reported. He reveals that he talked to Putin as a private citizen after he was ousted from the White House. That's not a smart look for him. He says, you need to ask Europe to get involved a bit more, ask them to pay their way in this. And that's why he said, if you don't do more, you're cut off. We're not going to defend you. So he goes back to one of his old comments where he had said that. And he says, they respect your president. Trump isn't our president. He's like, they respect, your president. our president is Joseph Biden, is not Donald Trump, and he refers to himself as your president. He thinks he's at one of his rallies because that's the kind of shit he says at his rallies, like your president, blah blah blah, and that's what MAGA refer to him. They call Trump his president, their president when he's not. Again, he brings up the president-elect. He could get it done there at that point. He again says our country is going to hell. Says Biden hasn't called Putin in 2 years and won't talk to him. Like, first of all, how exactly does Trump know what conversations Biden and Putin are having? And second of all, we are disagreeing with what Putin is doing right now. We're beefing as a term. So why would we be on the phone with him unless we're trying to get something settled similar to the ceasefire in Israel? World War III, doom and gloom. Where is Biden? He was thrown out of his presidential campaign like a dog. We've heard that like a dog statement before. Old, repetitive, low IQ, just typical Trump stuff. Dodges a repeat question about, what would you do to help Ukraine win? And he keeps dodging it and dodging it and dodging it. And brings up what Biden is doing. And he's not answering, the question of, do you want the Ukraine to win? And he just keeps saying, I want the war over. I want the war over, which is, his typical, okay, you're a God-fearing man. What is your favorite Bible phrase? It's too personal. That's what he's doing at this point. Kamala reminds him, you were running against me, not Biden. So, you need to bring things about discussing things with me or about me, not Biden. Good comments about going to the eastern flank and meeting with Zelensky, and Polish items come up at this point. Called out factual items about helping Ukraine and how if we didn't, Putin would have run over Ukraine at this point, and Putin would go beyond Ukraine if he was able to get it. Brings up a good point about Polish Americans living in Pennsylvania and knowing that Poland would be next after the Ukraine, and that is why Poland has a huge stake in pushing Putin back and helping Ukraine and everything. Again, ABC tries to corral Trump, and they're failing. Putin has nuclear. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody wants to talk about it, but let's not forget he's got nuclear weapons. And then says, yeah, she went down there to negotiate, but then the war started 3 days later, as if he's trying to say, Kamala's a bad negotiator, or something Kamala did in being at that eastern flank, being in talking with Zelensky out there. She's weak, and that's why this started. Again, Biden is the president. To think that anybody's aggressions in a country or against a country have anything to do with the vice president is kind of a little bit crazy. It's almost like he took the, hey, you're running against me, not Biden thing too far, and applied Kamala to having her own agenda and starting wars and everything. Yeah, they're trying to corral him again at this point. It's failing. ABC says to Kamala, do you bear responsibility for the botched Afghan pullout? And she begins with the facts that we talked about earlier. Trump's weak plan, the Taliban at Camp David, releasing Taliban prisoners, one of which was the second in charge for the Taliban. And ABC used Trump words against him at this point. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not exactly too sure what my note is on this one, but ABC does bring up some of his own words over here as a bit of a slam on Trump. Like, these are your words. What are you saying about that now? Then Kamala Kamala Harris goes against Trump for his racist history about not renting to black people. The Central Park Five. He actually tried to have a bit of a response to that one, saying I was against them when they admitted it, and but then they said they weren't guilty. He tried to sort of blame them for the ad, which actually I'm glad he tried to defend it that way, because I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter recently who kept saying Trump was not talking about the Central Park Five when he wanted the death penalty. It was a related case. So Trump himself admitted he was doing it because they said we're guilty. That's why he was calling for it. But then, they changed their mind and they said, no, we're not guilty. But that's great, because this goes back against somebody I was talking with on Twitter who was trying to make an invalid point. Kamala hits him with the birtherism against Obama and everything. Again, I'm trying to lift up, not attack. You're all about the attacking. I'm about lifting up. Calls out the name calling for against people. Trump hits back with, again, you want to defund the police. You want to take guns. You want to stop fracking. Yeah, you say it now, but if you do become president, you're immediately going to stop fracking. This is where things kind of devolve over here into a bit of a yelling match between the candidates. They try to get control. They do. Now they hit him with, okay, so you said you wanted to get rid of Obamacare. Why? You didn't wind up doing it. And he's like, well, I actually saved it. There wasn't a better plan. He basically says his own inaction against Obamacare was on purpose. And it wasn't, because Kayla McEnany came out there on 60 Minutes with the empty book that had no policy. He said, this is Trump's healthcare policy. So for him to sit there and say, well, actually, there wasn't anything better in place, so I left it. I was hoping it would die and decay and everything because it was so bad. I kind of saved it, which is absolutely ridiculous. He ran in 2016 that Obamacare was so bad, and he kept saying he was going to replace it. He's trying to rewrite history about one of his campaign slogans failing, just like we're going to put Hillary in jail. We're going to fix the deficit. We're going to get rid of Obamacare. And he starts saying that now, Kamala wants government insurance for everybody, no privatization. And then they're like, okay, well, what are your plans to fix Obamacare then? Well, we're looking at plans. We have concepts, but we don't have plans. It's literally like Rudy saying we have theories. We're looking for facts. He has no plan, but he's saying, we're looking at plans. We're looking at concepts. And then he lies about Kamala wanting just government insurance for everybody, where you have to wait 6 months to get surgery. Lies about Biden taking money. And then he gets really amped up and he's like, Biden is a traitor, and he takes money from China, and he takes money from all these places. What about 300 million from China? And he's yelling about it. So they cut him off. They go to commercial. They come back. They're like, okay, closing statements for everybody. Kamala's statements are all about hope, lifting up, trying to get rid of the divisiveness. She's not really going after Trump at this point. It's just like, we want to have a better nation, bring people up. And then Trump immediately goes on attack. His closing statement is an attempted attack on her. Doom and gloom again. We're a nation in decline. You've been around for almost 4 years now. Why haven't you done it? Now, this is where MAGA is going to say, we think he won. We think he won the debate over here. Biden and Kamala have been in charge for almost 4 years now. Why haven't you done it? Like, why are you trying to fix the things your administration already did? They have made inroads on everything they've wanted to try, and they have plans to continue it. Trump didn't have plans when he failed on the things he was doing in the 2016 to 2020 run. He did not have an answer for why was Hillary not in jail, and he tried to sweep that one under the rug. And he did not have an answer for where is the replacement for Obamacare, and where is the wall going across the entire southern border and all this stuff. He never had answers for those. And he never made inroads to fix things that were failed campaign promises while he was still in power, whereas Kamala and Biden have been fighting the entire way to get things done. We're a nation in decline. We're not going to exist anymore. No hope, no plans, just attacks. And that is how the debate ends. And apparently he was in the situation room or the room afterwards and still wasn't going good for him. Lindsey Graham has gone after him. Here's the terminate the I'm quoting him here, terminate the Constitution of the United States. Whether or not you think Trump won or you think Harris won or anything like that, it proved that Kamala could stand up there and debate him, and she wasn't going to be on Molly like Alex Jones says, or drunk, or not be able to stand toe to toe with him. She absolutely did. And, in my opinion, it was a doom and gloom spewing low IQ toddler against somebody who not only has plans for the future and policies, but is talking about hope, is talking about brighter feelings and emotions and a light at the end of the tunnel thing. Instead of Trump is like, don't even bother going down the tunnel, because if you look, there's a rock slide, you're stuck, you're screwed. Don't worry, I'll fix it. Well, how are you going to fix it? Yeah, don't worry, I'll fix it. That's basically what this was. And, Trump is a criminal. She's a prosecutor. She isn't a criminal. That was brought up effectively and everything. So there you go. That is my take on the debate that happened today. Somber day as it is 9/11. If you watch my channel, I have a 9/11 story on the channel. Check it out if you have a moment. Thank you for watching this video with me here. I know it is a long one, but it was a 2-hour debate. I tried to make it as painless as possible, but thank you very much. Have a good day.